Welcome to QDL. QDL is your look at who and what is making news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest. So, International Women's Day was March 8th. It's a day that celebrates the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. The day also marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. So, over the past few decades, within the manufacturing industry, which is, the industry most of you out there are involved in, we have seen a slow shift toward more women in leadership positions and more women in technical positions as well. So we thought today it would be appropriate to talk to a couple of women leaders who have not only come up through the manufacturing ranks, but relevant to our audience here, have also led lean transformations. So I'm happy to have with us today Shannon Karels and Kathy Miller, authors of Steel Toes and Stilettos, a true story of women manufacturing leaders and lean transformation success. Shannon, Kathy, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Dirk.
All right, before we get started, just briefly, how did you two meet? What's your background?
So we met actually at a company where we were working together. I grew up in and around manufacturing companies, having started, when I was 17 years old as an industrial engineering co-op student at a vehicle assembly plant, and then progressed through various operational roles, engineering and marketing, always in and around manufacturing. And Shannon, you want to tell a little bit about your background?
Sure, yeah. I actually have a degree in supply chain management. So I spent the first decade of my career working in all kinds of different supply chain functions. Went through a lean transformation, and that's when I really fell in love with the lean philosophies. And then Kathy and I met when she was actually visiting one of my plants, and we weren't working quite together yet, just at the same company. So Kathy, tell the story about how we met.
Okay, so at the time I was the Global VP of Lean Enterprise Quality and Strategy Deployment for a company that had about 300 plants worldwide. So I was running around the world with the business leaders, teaching lean, working with the various factories, the various functions on their lean transformations, doing audits, all that sort of thing. And I was mostly traveling with males at the time. And they were always challenging me to carry on my luggage and not check my luggage. And, I just really needed my accessories. And so I resisted and resisted. Finally, I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and try this on one trip. And that's when I met Shannon because, I left my safety shoes behind because they take up half of a carry-on bag, with the big steel toes. And I ended up at Shannon's plant. We did the preliminaries and we're going to go on the plant tour. And I told them I needed to borrow a pair of safety shoes that I had not brought my own. They said, no problem. They took me to the lobby. We're looking through the cabinet at every size and make of men's safety shoes in the world, none of which looked like they would fit me. And then they offered me, those like I call them like duck boot things, right? Yep. Where you put the plastic on the front and the back. They're not really very amenable to heels or anything. And so it was quite a dilemma. And about that point, Shannon was walking through the lobby and overheard it and said, well, Kathy, I'd be happy for you to borrow my safety shoes. And luckily, we wore the exact same size. So that's how we became shoe sharing buddies, back in the day. So that's how we first met. And then I went on to lead a P&L at the same organization and was looking for a lean manager. And Shannon was brave enough to apply for the, former VP of lean. And she had such a great supply chain background. And, as you know, material and information flow is critical. So I was able to bring her on my team in that position. It wasn't easy, as you'll read in the book, but very well worth the effort.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about your book is Steel Toes and Stilettos is about shepherding lean transformations, and I think this is a key point. You've already kind of alluded to it here. Your book takes it from a woman's perspective, right? Well, I mean, obviously you're women, so it's going to naturally come from that perspective. But I think also you are focusing on that aspect to describe what women bring to the equation and kind of what your experiences is what was like. Am I right about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It is a lean transformation roadmap on how we went through that process, but it focuses on many other aspects of our lives at that time. So we do talk about what it's like to be women in that industry and some of the experiences we had. We talk about what it was like to work together and have two females, and how it could be a very positive experience that helps the business grow in bountiful ways. And then we also talk about how real life happens outside the factories when you're still trying to do all these lean transformations and get great business results, but you still have families and travel, and what is the impact of that, and what it and sometimes it's different for women than it is for men. So we focus a lot on that in order to show other women and young females that you can be successful in this industry.
I've heard from women throughout the years that in order for your voice to be heard and to be taken seriously, maybe, particularly I know certainly within technical fields and also within leadership fields, that there's kind of pressure to, I don't know, act like your male counterparts in order to be taken seriously. Was that your experience?
So I would say this. I think that is definitely a real experience for a lot of people. And, back in the day, there weren't female role models for me in operations. So just had to find my own way and find my own authentic self. I would say, though, that I never tried to replicate male behaviors, so to speak, except the one time I tried to carry on my luggage, and had to leave my accessories behind. But what I would say is, as my career developed, I definitely developed more professional behaviors, regardless of gender, right? Because as you move up in your career, you're speaking to board of directors, you're representing the company to external stakeholders, to customers, and, there's a certain decorum and professionalism that I definitely grew into as I got more experiences, regardless of gender. But what I would say that I did have to be cognizant of is what the impact of my behaviors would look like to others and how they would be viewed. So, for instance, I've been with many men who have, pounded the desk and raised their voices and all sorts of things. And you leave those meetings and people say, wow, he's really passionate. He's a strong leader. He really dominates. He really cares about this business. And if I would exhibit that behavior, or another female colleague, they'd be like, she was so emotional,
right,
and it would take on more of like a negative type slant. So I think you just had to be aware of those gender stereotypes and perceptions, but I didn't ever make a conscious effort to emulate, certain more male traits.
Well, maybe Shannon, I'll ask this of both of you. So, what you just described is a very common, alpha male kind of, I'm the leader, and this is what I'm passionate about, and this is the way we're going to do it, and pounding the table and stuff. What is this may sound like a weird question, but I'm a guy. So, what is the how would a woman approach that same thing, not pounding the table? What is kind of the female way of driving home that point that I'm passionate about this project? These are the things that got to get done. I need you guys behind this project, whatever it is. If it's not kind of the alpha male kind of approach, what is it?
Well, to be honest, I've seen women do that also. So
okay.
I don't want to completely gender neutralize that bad behavior can happen in all types of leadership roles. I can speak, though, for the way Kathy and I chose to lead, and that was really more about being inclusive of all of our team members. We drove business results by building relationships and getting to know people as people and not just people who do a job. And so for us, I think that's how. Maybe it's just because of our personalities. Maybe it is because we're women. I don't know. But I have found in my experience that women that I've wanted to emulate leadership styles have been much more inclusive and relationship building than that command and control type of leadership style.
Kathy?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine talking to me now, but I did have those sorts of moments from time to time when pushed. But I think what was more effective for me to get people's attention was more about trying to inspire people, right? Like, this is a really important problem. We have these customers, they depend on us. We collectively are better than this, and really try to speak to their heart and just how disappointed I was, not in the people around the team, but all of us collectively, myself included, and that we had to really find a way to move forward together. So that was more of my MO, although I did a couple of times, raise my voice, slam the table.
Happens.
It wasn't my go-to, though. It wasn't my go-to. But, like I said, when you're in these positions and you're leading a team, you want to win. You want that team to win. You want your customers to win. These jobs are not for the faint of heart,
Right.
So all the tools are in the toolbox. You just have to use them according to what's appropriate. And like I say, it's more how other people perceive it than there being a big difference between how I felt and my male counterparts felt.
When you talk about inclusivity, and this is something I've read, that style of leading that you're just talking about there, I would imagine that helps to draw out the strengths in the people that you're working with as well, whether it's male or female or different ethnics or whatever, that as you're more inclusive, you're able to draw ideas out of them that maybe otherwise wouldn't come out. Has that been your experience?
Yes, 100%. 100%. People are not just their hands, right? They all have hearts, they all have heads. And if you can make connections with people, authentic connections with people, they are going to trust you and they're going to bring their best to work. And the other piece of that is, so it's not only being inclusive and given the opportunity, but some experiments work well and some don't. When they work well, you want to celebrate, you want to give credit where credit is due. And when they don't work out so well, so long as safety and quality is not compromised, you want to create a psychologically safe environment where people can fail and learn lessons from it and not be blamed or, have fear of repercussions. So I think that's the other piece of it too. For it to be effective, you've really got to have that culture where people feel psychologically safe.
Now, this is throw something out at you here. Do you feel that as male leaders have watched you lead and kind of still talking kind of within the realm of inclusivity and kind of that approach to leadership, have any of them ever come up and said, wow, that method, what you're doing really works? You know what I'm saying? I'm just wondering if male leaders that you know of have learned from you and learned from that style of leadership.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've had, I didn't just lead teams of women, right? So
Sure.
There were lots of teams of males, and, we always set the tone for how we were going to operate within the plants and organizations that I was leading. And so that was something I was very explicit about up front, that we weren't going to have silos, that we were going to treat each other with dignity and respect. All voices were to be respected. We would debate things openly. And when we left, right, even if we didn't agree, we were all on the same page as we moved forward so as to not confuse the organization. But yeah, many people observed my style, and I had many opportunities to speak to boards of directors and senior leadership teams and those sorts of things, because the results we got were so remarkably towards top, right? Like there were a lot of awards we would get for productivity improvements, for those sorts of things. And so they'd ask us how we did it. So we would have an opportunity to share those sorts of things.
Now, I want to be careful not to try to, cram everything into this gender difference, different approach kind of thing. But it is something I'm curious about. Do you have maybe some examples from your lean transformation work where you think the fact that you were women coming in to do this work may have gotten different, better results than, I don't know, maybe the males beforehand, or just the general approach? Something that just because you were women and had a different perspective on going into this made a difference. Am I trying to cram it into this?
I think it's such a tricky conversation to have, right? Because you don't want to speak in generalities, and right. You only know truly what you believe. I will say though that I think it goes both ways. I think that there was, when you look at gender and you look at these traditional, whether they're UAW, any type of those types of plants where you are traditionally run by men. I know I was one of the first plant female leaders of an organization that I ran, and there were some challenges to that, to having to go in, and I felt like I did have to work a little harder to gain people's trust, to show them I did know what I was doing and what I was talking about. So now from a male's perspective, they probably didn't have to do that. They would probably jump in, see where the organization was at, start driving tools and, telling people what to do. Potentially. That's what it was like at this company prior to my employment. I took the different approach because I felt like it was important to make people the foundation of what I was going to do. And that was very different for that team. So it was always I just do what I'm told organization. And I was trying to drive tell me what you think organization. Right. Yeah. Trust me to do something with it. And that hadn't been their experience. And so I can only speak from my own going in as one of the first female leaders there, that there were challenges and then there were benefits. I do think I got better results because I had, as Kathy said, the hearts and minds and the hands of the people, and everyone felt that they could contribute. They could choose whether they wanted to or not, but I gave them that opportunity, and it created a culture of trust. And when you do things like corporate assessments on how your culture is, and you start to see that slope go positively in that right direction, you know what you're doing is the right thing in a plant that historically, or a business that historically has had negative results from a culture standpoint.
Kathy, early, right at the very beginning of this, I think, you talked about the friendship that developed between you and Shannon, and how you guys kind of helped each other, supported each other. Here, use my boots. How important is mentoring and kind of that befriending, I guess, for lack of a better word, not only between let's say women, but minorities, just in general? How important is it that there's support from, I guess, like on like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know for sure because I didn't have female mentors or role models. All of mine were male. As a matter of fact, I never had a female boss, right? Huh. So I don't know. To me, it's just about people doing a job regardless of all of those things. I do know, though, I do believe in allyship. I do believe in mentoring. I do believe in being a good supportive leader who teaches your team how to fish, right? Doesn't do things for people, right? Part of it is developing leaders. So I don't know. I do know that a lot of people express that. I really would like a female mentor. When I have entered some organizations, people really made a big deal about me being a female. I hated that, right? Okay. I hate when people said, "Oh, I've never seen a VP of operations before who's a female." And I was like, well, why are you reducing me to this one aspect of my identity, right? I'm not ashamed to be female, but I did a lot of things to get at the table. So, but literally my calendar was filling up with younger females or females, who are aspiring to get to my level in the organization, asking me would I coach them, would I mentor them. So I know a lot of people prefer that, right? Prefer that affinity. but I was a champion at one company of the Black Employee Network, of the Disability Employee Network. And I actually didn't get real involved except a few speaking engagements with the Female Employee Network because that was such an obvious connection. And I just really wanted to send the message that if you want to improve your skills, if you want to be seen, if you want to be taken seriously, I'm here to mentor you regardless of, your gender or your status. But I do know a lot of people do seek that out for sure.
You said something really interesting just a second ago there. You said that you didn't want to be the I'm not sure how you put it, the woman leader, or you just wanted to be good at what you were doing, not tag the woman name onto it. Do you think that's a problem within business right now, that we're so hyper sensitive to inclusivity that we want to have the Black leader, the Latino leader, the woman leader, as opposed to a leader?
So we're talking a lot about it more now than we did when I started, right? There's a lot of press around it. There's a lot of pie charts being thrown up in HR meetings about how many people we have. And I think the most important thing is that we keep in mind the diversity of thought. That being said, I don't want to minimize the results that I was still one of 12% in upper leadership at most companies. So the gap is real. I don't want to minimize that, but I want to be recognized for my results and contributions, not my gender, right? Or my race or my disability status. So I think something with good intention can actually cause a little bit of hurt if you are, or, like the token in the room and people are labeling you as such. You just want to be that person at the table making those contributions, And so I really did. I shied away from that whole women's network at first. And then I thought, you know what? My message is about inclusivity and trust and authentic leadership and inclusion. So I'm going to talk to everybody who will listen to me. So I did end up sponsoring a number of events, but I wanted people to understand that I wasn't just about the Women's Network. I was about everybody sitting at the table who were the best people to contribute to the business. That's my philosophy.
Right.
And Kathy and I have shared that same philosophy through our different companies. And I had an experience where someone said, gosh, you have the most diverse team. And I looked at him, I'm like, I do? I didn't even think about that. And so I think it's a very, these diversity bonuses and pie charts and all these things have happened for a reason, because we have not forced people to have that diversity of thought and understand that having a diverse and inclusive culture is the right way to get business results. We just did that naturally. We picked the best person for the job. And I think that that's where some of this gets lost a little bit in business, is that when you have a smaller network to pull from, just because that's the way it is today, are you choosing the right person, or are you trying to fit into a pie chart? And so I think it's a very fine line, and I'm not saying that there's a definite right or wrong way, but I do think that if the more that we talk about it and the more that we open up our minds to allow for diversity, you will get the best candidate and the best business results.
Before I let you guys go, one of you, both of you, just give us our audience a synopsis of the book. What's the goal of the book, and what do you cover in there?
So first and foremost, it is a lean transformation guide. We do walk through the steps that we follow to successfully transform multiple manufacturing plants from traditional batch operations to lean enterprises. So that's what it starts with. And then it also leads into that culture piece. It's less about the tools and putting in those certain quality and lean tools. It's more about why we did what we did and how we brought the people along to do that. So it is much more people focused than tools focused. The other piece of it is to inspire, as we've discussed, inspire young women to get into the STEM and manufacturing fields, because there is a lucrative opportunity for them to be their authentic selves and to succeed in this world. So that's really from my perspective, and I know Kathy, add a couple more from your perspective, but that's what drove us to write the book.
Kathy, your
Yeah,
thoughts?
no, you hit it well.
Yeah, okay. All right. Shannon Karels, Kathy Miller, authors of Steel Toes and Stilettos, a true story of women manufacturing leaders and lean transformation success. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Dirk.
And thanks to all of you for joining us today as well. As usual, if you have some guests that you would like us to get on the show or some book authors you'd like us to talk to, just let us know. Send us an email to qdl@qualitydigest.com and we'll do our best. And that's it for today. Thanks for joining us on QDL. So long.